Okay, hi everyone. I'm just here to talk about some of the things that we practiced in practice. There are a couple things for offense and a couple things for defense that we talked about. Things for offense were setting up our stack so that we have constant deep threats. The second thing was break cuts and how we can set them up so that we have them reliably open. And then last was attacking the wake. The wake being the newly freed up space left by cutters who have cleared out. So, first thing we're going to talk about is those deep threats. The way that we set up deep cuts is we want to start them early. We want to have a lot of space in front of our receivers so that they can run onto it, so that they don't have to wait underneath of a disc that's floating, giving the defender time to make a play. So what we're going to do to ensure that we always have well set up deep cuts is our cutters are going to stack shallow. So we're going to stack no farther than 15 yards away, or 13.7 meters. 13.7 meters. It's a pretty close stack. It might feel a little bit too close to make an in cut, but that's not what we want. We want to open up our offensive attack with deep cuts. And what this does is it gives us lots of space to attack or behind our cutters. What this does is it makes our defenders really scared. Makes your defenders really, really scared of all of that deep space, which will free up under space when we want it. But what we're always going to do is we're going to try and always initiate with one good deep cut. Once we do that, then we can make big underneath gainers. Shallow stack means that we have good, easy deep cuts for any of our throwers to put out in front. It doesn't need to be a 70-yard bomb. It can be a 40-yard deep throw. That might not seem like a lot, but it gets us way out to the races with our offense. The next thing that we're going to do is set up really nice break cuts with our offense. Let's say cutter over there has made a good deep cut from a shallow starting position, and now they're making their in cut, and what they're going to do is make their in cut at an angle into that break side space, all this not break side space, all of this open side space. You're not going to come narrow because that makes it a harder throw. But also what flaring this cutout into space does is when they decide to inevitably clear out, when they clear out, we see that a very large break side window has been created that is really easy for this thrower to throw to, because this isn't even a break throw. This is a straightforward flick that they can catch in stride, and their momentum will carry them over to the break side where they can maybe hit some break side continue. There are a couple things happening here that we want to examine. The first thing is making that in cut flared out to the open side. That's the first thing that sets up this big window. The next thing is this thrower, the disc, is looking to throw this break early. They want to throw it early. They're looking to attack that break early once this cutter has started to move to the break side. They don't have to wait until this cutter is already on the break side, because that makes it a more difficult throw. That's unnecessarily difficult because, like I said, if we hit a nice easy break, their momentum will carry them their 3 steps over to the break side, and their defender, who was previously covering that in cut, is on the wrong side of the mark when they catch it. So they have this break side continue super duper easy. So 2 things: flare your cut to the open side and give yourself a large window. And then as a thrower, attack that break early so that you don't have to challenge your mark. That's not really necessary. And if we start hitting these insides every time, that mark is going to start getting scared and it's going to start shifting over. When that mark starts shifting over, because we're setting up a big window, we can still try for that inside, but once that mark starts biting over and kind of cheating to the flick side, we have a nice, easier route. And we're going to start breaking that mark even harder. Okay, so now the last thing that we're going to talk about is attacking the wake or attacking the new open space left by our cutting partners. Take as an example, we're running go-go's or something. Disc is trapped on the sideline. Ideal time to run this. So first thing that happens in go-go's is the open side cutter trapped on this sideline doesn't have a lot of space to cut, doesn't have a very big space to cut. So they're going to make that break side cut. We can hit it if we want. We don't have to. But as soon as they make that break side cut, they're out of the space. And now cutter number 2 has a much bigger space to work with now that our first cutter has vacated their spot. So 2 things are happening. 1, there's more space. We've made more space for a second more advantageous cut to develop. We can cut out and we have a big window without defenders there to guard it. And we also have a larger open side window to throw to. We don't have to squeeze it down the sideline. We have more space. And second, it's hard for this defender to anticipate what to guard next now that the shape of the field has changed. Before, they didn't really have to worry about guarding too much of this open side space because a cutter here and a defender here is kind of clogging it all up. But now that that person is gone, they now have a much larger area to cover, and we can kind of play more in that area and take advantage of the fact that these defenders can't anticipate the space that will soon be vacated. For an example of that, let's go to a standard flood play. What happens in a flood play? There are a couple of different variations on this, but typically what we'll see is the majority of the stack will cut to the break side. So now they're all out of this space. Their defenders will follow them because they want to play tight person defense. That's 4 people out of this open side space. What this defender before, was worried about was that skinny break. So they were probably playing right here. They were playing underneath because all of these players were clogging that space. But now that they've flushed themselves out of the stack space, the front of the stack, that anchor, now has a gigantic deep cut that this defender is very much not prepared for. So that's a standard flood play. The stack in front clears out, giving a big deep space to initiate a deep cut that the front of the stack defender is not ready for. So there's a big example of attacking the newly open space, or that wake left by our previous cutters. So this last idea of attacking the wake is something that is a little more fluid and a little more abstract. Attacking the wake is just a general rule for any offense. It's just a good idea. Taken into Boom system, we demonstrated it when we're talking about go-go's. That sideline cutter vacates the sideline to make more open space. If we're talking about tilt, 2 cutters go break side, giving a big open space for this cutter to work with. And if we're talking about Monkey Beach, we have 1, 2, and 3 all going deep. They all go deep so that our far break side cutter has a big streak across the field into a very large open space. So in all three instances, we're initiating with basically a clearing cut to make space, make large space for another cutter. So behind the idea of attacking the wake, there are a couple other things you should be thinking about. You can attacking the wake or attacking new space is a lot easier if you are clearing hard and treat your clearing cut as a cut, just like if you cut in and then cut break side, that's a cut that you should cut hard for. And then second, committing to your cuts. If you can commit to your cuts, it's a lot easier for your cutting partners to read what you're doing on the field. If you're dancing in the lane, you're not making space, and obviously you're not clearing hard, but you're not making space for another cutter to make a move. So those are the three things for offense. Constant deep threats set up by a shallow stack and everyone having at least a 40-yard deep throw. That's something we can all work on, having a 40-yard deep throw. Next, setting up our break side cuts with a large open side cut to start, and then attacking the mark early so that you can hit an easy inside or an around. And then last, attacking the wake or attacking the newly open space left by other cutters.